Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. So this is a gigantic, insane piece. There's so much like, I guess, story associated with this. So I'll just start. This is a piece from a custom group, which, out of respect for them, I won't go into too much detail with the name of the group or the name of the producer. A little bit of legwork on Facebook will get you that information, I'm sure. But this was the person's, I think, first major custom project. And he definitely decided to choose a very ambitious, almost really ridiculous piece to start with. So what are we looking at here? This is called the Hunter's Way, and it involves a predator fighting an alien warrior, okay? And that's the concept of the piece. And let's, I guess, delve into this a little bit more. So as we're doing this, I'm just gonna kind of go get some close-ups. So we'll talk about the details a little bit later, the intricacies of the statue and all of that. There's a lot to talk about. So in terms of the background, this is of course not from any real official movie. The original Predator Predator and Predator 2, of course, did not have any aliens in it. The very last part of Predator 2, the city hunter showed a very nice little Easter egg of an alien skull in the Predator's ship, and that led to, of course, the Alien versus Predator series of films. And so I guess if you were to take inspiration, or he took inspiration, the producer, from maybe the original Alien versus Predator, where you had sort of Predator acolytes, so to speak, or young predators, unblooded predators, and part of their ritual was to go to this like temple in the middle of the Antarctic and then fight the aliens. If you look at the base, at least for me, the base is very reminiscent of like a pyramid, this kind of ancient structure, and it did remind me again of the pyramid from the first Alien versus Predator movie. But there, the similarities sort of end because the design of the Predator himself is nothing like the Predator designs from the movie. This one is very clearly the Predator from the original movie, the P1 Predator, okay, the so-called jungle hunter. You have the netting, the paint, the armor, the cannons, all of that is pretty classic P1. So even though the inspiration and the idea of the Predator fighting the alien is from, again, Alien versus Predator the movie, and the base is reminiscent of that, the design is classic P1 Predator, and then the alien, in my opinion, in terms of the design and the sculpt, is also pretty classic from Aliens, from James Cameron's Aliens, the Alien Warrior. So this is just a completely amazing and awesome design. And if you're like a Predator collector, this is kind of like a no-brainer to get, even though it costs a lot of money, and you hopefully can understand just from me backing up how massive this piece truly is. I get close enough and you can kind of see my hand here. So these are both quarter scale pieces. And you can see again with my hand how huge the base is. So, recently there's been a lot of Predator pieces, really expensive ones and large ones. A lot of it from Prime One, who's kind of getting into this, arena. And I've just had to pass on a lot of them just because I just don't have the space to be spending, well, first of all, the money to be spending thousands of dollars, both on the piece and the shipping, and of course the space to display them on sort of like Predator adjacent pieces like weird concepts or weird inspirations from the Dark Horse comics or from that type of thing as the source material. And you have to be a little bit picky, because of this. And I feel like, in my opinion at least, as a so-called predator collector and connoisseur of predator statues, I feel like some of those alternate universe predators or the Dark Horse comics or those type of things, I think they're best suited for 1/6 scale, like Naren did a beautiful library of those types of works, because it allows you to have a lot of imagination. You can create a lot of different ideas, but then it doesn't take as much space. So you're free to let your imagination run wild. You can have Aqua Predator and all sorts of versions. For instance, the Berserkers and Rogue Hunters and Barbarian Predators. Bad Blood, Death Warriors. All of these different concepts can be explored, but because the scale is smaller, you have the ability to go into them, and you have a lot more breadth. You can't make a $2,000 alternate predator, because the niche there is just too small, in my opinion. So even though there's been a lot of product on the market, I've had to be very selective. But the reason this struck me, and the reason I felt I had to get it, is because this shows in quarter scale a predator actually fighting an alien, and it actually looking really, really good. It's difficult, to create a battle scene between a alien warrior and a predator that feels like real, it feels organic, and then of course at this scale, this type of project just doesn't exist. There are a couple of pretty nice alien versus predator statues and or kits, but they're much smaller. They're 1/6 scale and much less ambitious. And I have some of those in my collection, sculpted by Naren, painted by Joe Dunaway, that I think are beautiful works of art. And I'll review some of those in the future, but they don't have the sheer presence of this. And I also really enjoyed the fact that you juxtaposed the P1 Predator from the Alien Warrior from Aliens. And so you didn't go too true to the odd design of some of the movies. And this is kind of reminiscent of a piece I have on my channel that I did a review on, which was a Hulk versus Wolverine, which showed a Hulk that's clearly inspired by Mark Ruffalo's Avengers Hulk fighting Hugh Jackman's Logan or Wolverine. And this battle could never, and will probably, you never say never, but it probably will never ever be seen in the movies, because Jackman's retired, and they moved on. But it was great in statue form to show that dream matchup. And here we have again the dream matchup of a P1 Pred against an alien warrior from Aliens. So again, a very, very sort of special concept. And this one again shows in really detail sort of the writhing, sort of the writhing passion, so to speak, and the intensity when these kind of two are engaged in a life or death battle. So it's like a great expression from the predator himself, and then of course the alien is digging the jaw into the shoulder. So the actual inner tongue is already penetrated into the shoulder. So you definitely kind of feel this life or death struggle. There's a lot of power and energy in the piece, rotating from different angles. You can see there's just this massive alien warrior completely surrounding and jumping on the predator, and all of the movements, sort of the way the legs are spread out, the huge tail, everything's just kind of sculpted to perfection, and everything fits together. It's just an amazing sort of showcase of detail, design, how to do all of this to make it look great and not have it all fall apart. So again, this is a tremendous piece of work, and so unique. And from someone who collects a lot of Predator pieces, this is definitely up there in terms of the best ever made. Okay, and to give credit where credit is due, the sculptor is the one and only Franco Carlissimo. And I think this is like his first, Predator piece, and so it's kind of amazing that he got so much right. You know, sculpting Predators is sort of it's a very, very small field. There's very few people who do it well and who do it accurately. And for Predator fans, we're all pretty picky about stuff like that. Certainly, Naren is very, very famous in this field. You have the original Predator from Stan Winston Studios, where if you're taking original molds, then accuracy is very important. And Sideshow put out the Stan Winston Studios tribute piece under the direction of Stan Winston and John Rosengrant many, many, many years ago, over a decade ago. And of course, you have Steve Wang, who was part of the creative team for the original Predator suit and the Predator concept, who then sculpted an idealized version of the Predator for Cinemaquette, also many, many years ago. And so in terms of Grail Predator collectibles in the Predator community, the Steve Wang Cinemaquette and the Sideshow Stan Winston Studios P1 quarter scale maquette are pretty widely considered, the top, the cream of the crop in terms of great collectibles. If you see in the background, you can see I have the Stan Winston Sideshow piece in the background on a bookshelf, which I'll take that down and review that in the future. But I think that this definitely stands up there with them. And so this is a very, very big company, and just in general, for Franco to sort of achieve this is a pretty amazing accomplishment, because again, Predator sculptors typically spend many, many years honing their craft, and so for him to achieve this as a first go is pretty stunning. And same thing with the aliens. Sculpting an accurate alien, doing a good job there, also very, very challenging, very, very difficult. And he did both, and he did both in this incredible action pose. Is just, just a huge testament to his talent. So, there you go. There were 30 of these made, so a few more details. So scoped by Franco, 30 total. And I think the 30 includes a wide variety of options. The most common is, of course, just a factory painted version like you see before you. They also sold kits, which were slightly cheaper. You would have, of course, have to get it custom painted. And then finally, I think there were anywhere from 10, maybe, pieces that was professionally painted by Yavuz, a guy named Yavuz Kantoglu. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but he's one of the best Predator painters, as well as one of the best alien painters, working today. And so, for extra fee, he will, of course, do a custom job on this massive piece. But all told, I think the total number, there's only 30 total, including the custom pieces and including the kits and the factory paints. And so mine is number 25 out of 30. And I definitely respect that because, of course, the lower the edition number, the more time and care can be placed into the creation of each piece. Once we get into I think even over 50 or 60, 70, it just becomes really, really difficult for the factory to maintain quality control. And a piece of this ambition requires or demands a lot of quality control to make sure everything comes together. There's so many things that can go wrong with, again, not only the way parts fit, but also kind of the paint quality that I think a lower edition size is critical to maintain, again, all of that quality. So if you're an owner of this, then you're truly a member of a very, very exclusive club. And you are definitely owning one of the best Predator and Alien pieces I think ever made on the market. Difficult to imagine any piece better than this. And again, Prime One has a lot of candidates, but I've seen a lot of their versions, and I feel again slightly overwhelmed because essentially Prime One is giving me concepts that Naren has already explored in my opinion, much better, better form a decade ago. But instead, they give it to me oversized, overscaled, and too expensive. So it's not something that moves me very much. It's the same thing when XM gave me a gigantic third scale Predator that Naren has again done much better a decade ago in 1/6 scale, and all you've done is made a bigger, more expensive, heavier version of that that just doesn't give me anything new. I mean, you know, if you gave me the same Predator in that same pose and you made a life size and it's 9 feet tall, that doesn't still make that statue any better. It gives it more presence, but it doesn't give it any. It doesn't make it better in terms of, again, the imagination and the concept. So here you go. So again, let's delve now into the details. Let's start with the base. So essentially, you know, for what you're getting, you are getting essentially 3 statues. So you have on the base itself, you have a dead alien. So hopefully you can appreciate here the dead alien cut in half by the Predator. So that's the top half, and then this is the lower half. You know, with the legs. And you can see him chopped into little pieces. So you have essentially most of a alien warrior statue, you know, dead on the ground. Then of course you have the P1 standing over that one. And then you have, of course, another alien warrior kind of getting the jump on the Predator. So you have 3 quarter scale kind of statues in this composition, okay? And then you have this incredibly heavy, this base has got to be at least, I think, 40 pounds. I mean, this incredibly heavy, you can feel how solid it is. This incredibly heavy pyramid style base to support all of the things that are going on here. So moving into close-ups, the base has these steps in the, you know, I guess you want to call it the front here. And the side, this is a triangular base. And so if we flip it all the way to the back part, you will see that, you know, this part here, of course, there's no steps. So there's steps on 2 sides of this triangle, okay? It's very nicely weathered. You know, it gives you the impression of like weathered old stone. So I think overall the paint job, I'll get into that a little bit later on, but I think the paint job on the base is definitely solid. And then of course, there's a lot of effects from the acid blood of the alien. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with alien lore, if you're not a big alien fan, you know, the blood of an alien is acidic, and so it just basically eats away whatever it touches. I'm not sure if this is stone or metal. It's kind of confusing. I think, of course, because it's a pyramid, it gives me the impression that it has to be stonework, but you can also imagine it to be sort of metal as well. But throughout the base then, you do see the effects of the acid from the alien essentially etching and eating away at the base. And so this is done quite nicely. It's quite nicely sculpted as well. So you can see damage throughout. You can see the damage here and here. It's kind of random. You can see the rivulets of acidic blood from the areas where the alien is being chopped in half or chopped in little pieces. You can see the kind of the rivulets running down and of course etching and eating away. And if you go close enough, you can actually see sort of the divots as it runs all the way down. So that's a very, very nice effect. Okay, you see it here, you see it here. And of course at the back of the base, you can actually see, hopefully you can appreciate that these are little divots where the little drops of acid actually make little tiny holes again in the base. So if I go really close, I think you can appreciate all of that. You can see here the groove again created by the acid that's spilling from the alien. So when you chop an alien in half like this, you can definitely you know, you're definitely going to see the consequences. So again, very, very nice details of, you know, divot here, divot here, divot here, all of the damage caused by the acid, and it's everywhere. You can see it off all of the sides. You can see this big divot right over here as well, again, where a chunk has been destroyed by the acid blood. So I think the effect here is really nice. When you take a step back, you can actually see how the remnants of the dead alien and the acid blood spilling out is then dripping down and then causing permanent scars on the base, the stone surface. So this alone is like a really, really nice, imaginative, you know, way of presenting the damage. So that's the base. Now, one thing about the piece that I guess is a criticism, at least from my point of view, is that the base is just completely over the top. I mean, at this point, in that respect, of course, this base truly is absolutely right up there with Prime 1 Studios, who's famous for creating ridiculously dumb big bases for no reason. From their very first Optimus Prime release, Prime 1 has been doing this, which is another reason I'm not like a huge fan of their statues, even though I know there are people who live and die by them, is I just can't see myself devoting this sort of space to their pieces where they're just so huge, you know? Unless, again, you live in a huge mansion and the entire house is like devoted to Prime 1 pieces. It's not very practical, you know? And so this space is up there with them. It's just huge. But unlike Prime 1, there is a reason for it. Now, believe it or not, it's not because, you know, you need it to sort of appreciate the actual entire piece itself. To some extent, that's true. But, you know, you can very easily have this beautiful work of art just on a flat base. Why did you have to, I mean, the amount of money that this base cost, the amount of resin that went into this base is more than everything else put together, and the weight it added probably cost hundreds of dollars just to ship. So why was this base conceived? Well, I mean, the entire reason for why this base is conceived, other than essentially to give you, again, the idea that you're in a, you know, pyramid, or like either from the Incan pyramids or Egyptian pyramids, or like the Antarctic pyramid in Alien versus Predator, is that they wanted to show, or the producer wanted to show, the effect of the acid blood running down the stairs, and also he wanted to have the ability to show the entire body of the alien in three-dimensional form. So you don't have the alien essentially lying flat on the base, which a lot of Naren's smaller scale pieces, which I'll show or review in later videos, it's kind of constrained by the flatness of the base. He wanted this kind of height difference, this three-dimensionality, basically so that he can show this this alien's leg just sort of laying here, and the leg is basically, you know, going down the stairs, right? So it's a lot more, I guess, naturalistic, that you can see that here. I'm backing away. So just look at the body of the alien. He's just sort of lying there, and then the leg is just sort of casually flung over the edge of the top of this pyramid, and you get to see that. And so without the height of this pyramid, you don't have the effect of this leg just sort of going down. And so, you know, the tip of the claws here is, again, almost, it's just above the bottom of the base. And he really wanted this effect. And if you go to the back and we see, again, the dead body from a different perspective, you can see that the tail similarly goes all the way at the bottom. Okay, so he wanted to have that sense of depth for both the tail and the leg to go over the edge and down. And so for that to happen, you have to have a very, very high base to show that dimensionality. And of course, he really wanted to go the extra mile to show you the damage caused by the acid. Acid damage in an alien piece, whether alone or with a predator, is nothing new. We've seen it before, but never to such a beautiful, detailed extent. And so, again, that was the ambition of the base. Now, this base, of course, is not just complete by itself. A major part of the base, and what makes us essentially one of the best bases ever made, is the dead alien. Now, there are of course similar concepts of this before. I think Sideshow's Wolf legendary scale piece, which I own, was the one that most recently did it to wonderful effect. Again, a decapitated alien as the base, and then the wolf launching off of that body. But of course, this puts to shame. Now, maybe this derived some inspiration from that concept, but again, it sort of went to the next level. So this is a beautifully detailed, dead alien lying on the side. So all the anatomy, all the detailed anatomy of the alien warrior is still present in this base. No shortcuts were taken. It's like they took this guy right here and then killed it and then put it down here. But the detail of the head, of the dome, all of these, you know, the arms, all of this stuff is completely as detailed as a real alien. And so that definitely, you know, is appreciated. So you can see him kind of lying down, a very natural pose. The right arm claw is just sort of flopped in, and they have another one just sort of laying on the ground. You can see the actual inner tongue. I'm going to rotate it to give you some detail here, so you can actually see the inner tongue just sort of sticking out. You know, the jaws just sort of open, clearly dead. And again, all of this detail. This is detail that normally you would you know, see on like a life-size one-to-one bust. It's preserved, and you know, sometimes when you have dead aliens as part of the base, you take shortcuts. You know, the detail's not as good. You know, you take little shortcuts, you kind of blend it with the base. But here, as you can see, no expense was spared on the sculpt. Even down again to the tail and all of that. So look at the side again of the head. So there you have it. Okay, and then of course the predator standing on it. So look at all the damage. He's of course sliced completely in half with all these entrails, and then you see the massive amounts of acid and the acid damage. You see the effects of the battle, these claw marks, no doubt from this. You can see that right over here. You can see a leg partially chopped off, so that's missing, and you can see all the blood spilling here. You can see the rent marks right over here. So definitely this alien was killed, not, you know, with a gun, but with these blades. So very nice effect. And of course you can see that the tip of the tail right over here was also chopped off. And then of course you can see the acid blood coming from here and then dripping here. So really nice tight composition, consistent. They didn't miss anything. Everything makes sense. Whenever you have a part of the alien chopped into bits and pieces, there's corresponding damage, there's corresponding blood, and then the corresponding damage. So this was very nice attention, again, to detail. And then here, of course, you see a little bit of it over here, but then here, of course, you see all of the guts, the entrails, the spinal column, just sort of flopping out, and then you get to see that as well. So very well sculpted, nicely done. And then same thing over here. Okay, so you kind of move it over here so you can see on both ends the detailed anatomy again of the gore of the entrails showing. This is the mask for the P1, and it can be removed, and you can normally this is the place where you put it in. So as you can see, this is very, very nicely you know, created, nicely painted, beautiful casting, a lot of you know, gunmetal effects. It's weathered beautifully. You can see the different pieces of damage here. And then of course, you know, you can take a look here at the eyes. They actually have it meshed, so they took no shortcuts there. Very, very nice detail. You can see that here as well. So this is overall a beautiful you know, biomask. Excuse the background, dishwasher's going on. But you can see it's a very, very beautiful piece. So, you know, even the mask again, you know, you can see the little blast mark here, a very classic P1 mask. So this is kind of sets off the entire base. So moving backwards, now you have kind of the beauty of all the components of the base, the big pyramid base, the acid damage, the dead alien, the P1 biomask. Very nice. So next we're going to move to the P1, the Predator himself. As far as this goes, a very, very beautiful, wonderful sculpture. You know, this is clearly the P1, and if you were to compare it to the original Stan Winston Studios sideshow maquette, this is definitely an accurate piece and does homage to that one. This is way closer to the P1, the movie one, and the one that, again, created by Sideshow, than of course the Steve Wynn Cinemaquette. And here they're very respectful of that design. So it's not like this weird Predator, not something that's never been seen before. It's not the boar Predator or whatnot. This is classic P1. It's sculpted. It's meant to, you know, it's meant to have that Now, of course, one thing is it doesn't have the chains or the bandoliers, which is a bit unfortunate, but I think, that would have been a little bit more complicated. Again, it would have added yet one more complexity to put the bandolier of bones as well as the bone necklace. That would have been a nice touch, but again, there's a couple of things I can think of to maybe argue against it. Number one, of course, is just the actual logistics of making it work, not having it break. How would you put it around the Predator? It would have, again, added something a little bit complicated to already a very, very complicated piece. And maybe they didn't want it to be an exact version of the P1. You wanted it to be kind of the same species, very similar, maybe the same character without the bones. Maybe the bones were ripped off during the battle, but they don't have that, again, the bandolier bones and the bone necklace. But in all other respects, in terms of the coloration as well as the netting, and this is actually real netting, so you can feel that this is real netting all the way through. And again, the coloration and the camouflage and the way he's painted, this is screams P1. So number one, I do really like the accuracy of it. I like the fact that he's very immediately identifiable as the P1. I like the effect of the gunmetal and the weathering. This is actually excellent, in my opinion, excellent weathering. Very, very good. I'm going to kind of give you some details here from the feet all the way up to the gunmetal weathering. Again, you can see the netting that's actually put over here individually. So now you know why you can't make 100 of these. It's a tremendous amount of labor to create these, to paint these, and to make them. You can only make about, so many of these. So again, 30, no more, no less. The entire body is covered with netting like this, all the way up even into the arm. So that's a tremendous amount of work. Here, take a look at the gauntlets. There's the hand, being grabbed by the alien. Let's take a look at the back. Very, very nice. Again, the cloth here, all netting, and then of course the gunmetal, the backpack, and all the way here in the corner. More of that. You can see the holes right over here. And then the blades are actually metal. If it's not metal, it fooled me. It feels like metal. So again, a very, very nice touch. And here, again, this is where he has the bomb. There's a guy who's customizing even lights into this thing. So that's gonna be an amazing custom piece. But this is factory, so that's okay. It doesn't have the electronics. You have to pay quite a bit to have that installed. And I think that guy who's doing it is just doing a one-off for himself. And then you can see again, the cannon here also very nicely done and beautifully detailed all the way to the front right over here, okay? By the way, I'm very well aware that I'm missing two small hoses, one here and then the other one back there. It's because, believe it or not, and this is almost too much to believe, in all the excitement of actually putting him together, I actually took the big hose here and put it in place. I put the bag with the two small hoses aside, and it just disappeared. Maybe a little predator or alien came in and stole them, but I swear, this is the first time that's ever happened to me. That this happened when I was like putting together a statue, and it's just one of those things where it disappeared. So the producer very kindly is going to just send me a bag with the replacement little hoses. And I just plop them in place. But those are very minor parts of the statue, so I decided to go ahead and give the review. So again, beautifully done, and of course this is the actual face with the individual dreads flying all around. So one of the things, again, I really like about the Predator, and in general that I like about statues, is that feeling of motion. That means that this statue, he's not just standing there. It's not just like a boring Captain Morgan pose. He's fighting for his life. There's a lot of energy. Look at the way the hand is flung out. Look at the interplay of the muscles. There's an alien on his back, for God's sakes, and it's biting him. It's about to kill him. So he's screaming. He's got the claws ready. He's got a fist going on. He's bent over. So this is like an amazing translation of the body in motion, energy, muscles rippling. So again, the pose, this is like one of the best poses, honestly, of any Predator I've seen. It's hard enough, by the way. Predator is sort of like the ultimate test of a great sculptor and a great painter, because they're so challenging. And so it's already challenging enough to just sculpt an accurate predator with all of the dreads, the fangs, the netting, the spots. I mean, everything has to be done right. It's challenging enough to just sculpt a predator, but now you have to actually then take that predator and sculpt it in motion at that extra layer. And so you don't see a lot of quarter scale predators doing a whole lot. Number one, really hard to sculpt anything in motion believably. And then number two, a predator with all of this kind of combination. It's like basically a crocodile slash snake with a whole bunch of dreads. And then on top of that, you got the netting, and on top of that, you have to have the armor around it. It's just sort of like the ultimate challenge. And so it's hard enough just to do a good one standing, and then to make him move and move believably, and then to make him fight, and then make him like, engaging in a struggle with another alien. It is just a phenomenal ambition and phenomenally achieved by Franco. So another thing that's very nice about this is that there were no shortcuts taken with the dreads. So he has essentially 39 pieces of dreads. Some of them are more than one, and they're all individually sculpted, individually cast, and individually magnetized. And there's different holes in all of the, there's different holes to put all of them in. And there's a map you have to follow to put it in. So this takes quite a bit of time in order to achieve, okay? So that's something that's actually very, very impressive. A lot of times, again, predator pieces sort of take a shortcut, and the dreads are all sort of lying down and molded as one piece. And this is another reason why a lot of predator statues just have them standing still, because when you have them sort of flailing, fighting, screaming, then all those dreads are going to be twirling around and flying around as you would expect. And then that makes it even more expensive and more difficult, because then you have to treat each dread separately, individually. So there you go, they didn't skip that step. And this is also made of a very hardy things. I think it's almost like plastic. I don't think it's resin, so that it doesn't break. Okay. And again, you have to individually magnetize every single one of them. So that's definitely pretty impressive. You can also see the quills here along the crown of the head. Now the quills are the one area that is that could do with a little bit more, it's a little bit disappointing in the sense that they're hard plastic and they are individual, but sometimes here they're sort of molded all together as well. And so a custom piece, like say from Joe Dunaway and some of the Naren builds, the quills, you can see it goes all the way down the chest. So these quills are almost like chest hair for the predator. And you can see that they are sculpted as part of the main body. And so, in a custom piece, those quills will not be sculpted. They will be individually placed. And, I think Joe Dunaway uses porcupine quills to give the effect, which looks amazing. You can also use plastic pieces off a comb, the tip of a comb. And he now has these rubbery ones. Now, again, I understand if you use the individual quills, then you're going to break them. It's going to snap off 100%. So that's very, very difficult to actually do. But that's a limitation that I can't really hold against this piece, because again, it is sort of impossible at the factory to do it. There's a reason why typically the very best predator pieces have to be custom made. So I guess if Yavuz was doing it, he may be crazy enough to get rid of these quills and then put individual quills all the way around, which is a ton of work. One thing that this does allow the producer to do is you have a lot more quills. Typically, custom pieces, well, it looks better than this because it's real quills, individually micro drilled in, is that you only have a couple throughout. Like here, you do not have like the density of quills here. Okay, so there you have it. I mean, I think that overall, from the individual dreads to the backpack, the netting, the pose, the armor, the musculature, this is just a beautiful P1. And trust me, I own a lot of P1s. Stan Winston himself will be proud of this one. This is an excellent Predator P1 sculpt in motion, and you don't have a lot of these guys in motion. So moving on, let's get to the alien. Now this one is alive, and so I'm going to try to back up. This is the part that's really difficult because I'm just not tall enough to show you this, but hopefully you can see. So this is the alien warrior. Let's start with the back, so you can see sort of this view right here, where it's jumping on the back of the predator. Let's go all the way up. I'm going to sort of do this action, so hopefully you can see some of that detail all the way here, the side. So again, just beautifully sculpted all the way down here. And then of course here it's very clever. This is how the statue is engineered, which I'll go over a little bit later. So you don't actually see the tip of the tongue. It's already, basically penetrating the shoulder. You can see the tendons on the sides. You can see that the alien is biting into him. And then again, checking out the shoulders, the arms, and now the other side. He's grabbing the predator on the head. Let's take a look at the undersurface. Here you can see the neck right over here. And then of course in this alien, the tail hasn't been cut off. So you can see the tail in all its glory, all the way to the tip. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful work on the tail. No shortcuts taken. Lovely stuff. There you go. Okay. Right on over here. So what's there to say about this alien? It's a great alien, definitely an alien warrior from Aliens. Again, beautifully sculpted, dynamic. So just like the predator, is in motion, this alien warrior is also in motion, and again, done just in a breathtaking way. So dynamic. The legs sort of spread. I mean, aliens are more like animals, right? They're more like insects or beasts. That's sort of the design. And so when you see how the legs are just sort of spread out, and the legs are just sort of parted and grasping, and the arms are grabbing, and then of course the head's attacking, it just sort of really, understands how these aliens move, how they attack, how they would look. So again, absolutely stunning work. And look at all of that detail that's kind of put into this. So again, it can't be overemphasized enough that this is essentially 3 statues, and 3 of the most difficult to sculpt and the most detailed statues possible that you've got here, from the base all the way up to him. So this is a massive piece. I think it's well over 36 inches tall, maybe a little bit taller from the very height of the tentacles of the back all the way to the base. So now that we've talked a bit about the sculpt, from the base to the predator to the 2 alien warriors, the whole pose, the whole concept of the piece, we now have to get to the paint. So in terms of the paint, it's always been my sort of bias that I don't think a predator piece can ever truly be done justice by a factory paint. Like, it's almost impossible. If you think that sculpting a predator piece is sort of like a grand test of the skill of the artist, then only the best painters are able to handle a predator. It is a very unique niche, and there's very, very few who are able to do a predator justice, because again, they're like reptiles. You have to spend so much time airbrushing the spots, the camouflage. You have to then work with the netting. You have the inside of the mouth with the gloss and the veins and all of these things. There's just so much that goes into it that there's very, very few people who can actually paint predators and again do it justice. In my opinion, Joe Dunaway is the best in the world. I love his work, and I've collected him for a long, long time. I always have a piece for him to be working on throughout the years. He's never really disappointed me. So in terms of just looking at the paint job, I would say that from a factory paint point of view, I would give this like a solid B, B minus. And I don't know if a factory can get much better than this unless you're starting to pay ridiculous amounts. And again, my feeling is that there's just so much to a predator that I don't think you can just waste too much money on continuing to say like I'll pay you double or triple, because at some point the guy who's doing this in the factory just can't do it. That guy is not Joe Dunaway. That guy is not Yavuz Contaglue. They're just not capable of doing it, and then throwing more money their way isn't going to make it happen. Spending more time and more hours doing the work doesn't make it better. There is a kind of asymptotic limit where the factory painters in China simply are not going to be able to achieve. And so I think that the producer paid enough to get it to a certain level where you're going to get the maximum money's worth, and beyond that you're getting diminishing returns. I think like a B minus is about where it's at. There are certain areas of the piece that are weaker than others. For instance, if you want to go really close, I think that the mouth area is average. I would have preferred a bit better veining on the sides. Hold on a second, I'm trying to just it's kind of hard to show you the detail here. But again, there's not quite as much veining along the sides that I would have preferred. I like the gloss. There's actually some really, really nice detail on the eyes. Again, it's kind of hard to do because the flash sort of, makes it difficult, but you can kind of see it. Hopefully from this angle, you can get an idea of this. I'll do a quick look without the flash a little bit later on, because the flash does tend to kind of blot out the colors, but it also brings out the details in a way that a video without flash can't do that. So at the very end, I will show the piece again without the flash. So I think that the crown here, again, is done very, very nicely, very, very well. But some of the spots here are, again, a little bit crude in terms of, again, the depth of the paint. You can do a lot better, again, with an airbrush with many, many layers. So I think that the head is okay, but the dots here, for instance, is a little bit more crude, okay? But I think that the paint job as far as the body, in terms of the legs and the chest, the gunmetal effects, as well as the back of the Predator, is very, very good. Most people use the Cinemaquette as well as the Stan Winston Studios sideshow piece as sort of a standard. These were grails created by the factory over a decade ago when things were a lot cheaper. Statue collecting of this type was in its infancy, and they were willing to do more for less. So those are usually kind of like original grails or OGs, where the paint quality at the factory level was sort of held as a standard. And I have to say that in terms of the body of the Predator, it's basically about the same. I don't think it's actually any worse, and so you cannot complain about that. The metal of the claws are a very nice effect. Most of the time those are just cheap plastic or resin, and so the fact that this is actually metal is a very, very nice touch. Okay, so the body, the cloth, the belt effects, the gunmetal armor pieces, they're all very, very good. I would call that probably B plus, A minus even. And the dreads are also decent. This is like maybe a C plus, B minus, mediocre, average, decent, because again, they're kind of like plastic. There's not a lot of beautiful details or weathering of the dreads. And then again, I would say C plus, B minus for the head, the mouth, and the effects on the crown. The back of the head here leaves a bit to be desired, but again, most of it is hidden by the dreads, so you don't see it quite as much. So if you back up, then overall, it's still, from this distance here where the light's not basically messing everything up, you look at it like this, definitely a solid B minus, maybe even a B in some respects. So for factory paint job, very, very good. But that's as it should be. Those of you who are paying the extra thousands for Yavuz to do a complete custom job with his assistant, you're going to get your money's worth. And there should be a big difference between Yavuz's work or Joe Dunaway's work and just like a factory paint job, no matter how good the factory is. I had considered having Joe do this as well. He lives in the United States as well. He lives in Wisconsin in the United States, as do I. I live in California. So it would have been a little bit, more convenient. But even at that point, how to draw the line somewhere. This would have taken Joe probably months to do. It would have cost thousands, and the shipping again would be just a killer. It would be $1,000 shipping minimum, and so I just there was only so much I was willing to sink into any one project for a statue. So I had to draw the line somewhere. But for those who are willing to do that, you're going to get a work of art that's the next level, and then that is as it should be to distinguish it from a factory job. In terms of the alien, again, I think overall it's magnificent. It's a little bit of gloss, but not ridiculously so. In some areas it's a little bit flat. The detailing is a little bit, it's like good, but not fantastic. Again, there's not a lot of great subtlety to the paint, but it's still there. Again, solid B. I would call the alien like a solid B. The coloration, of course, is not the dark coloration of the classic alien warrior from Aliens, but that's okay. I feel like this particular color, which is more like gray, allows us to showcase a little bit more of the detail. So even going down to the fingernails and the black on the fingernails. This is a lot of work, guys. A lot of work. The acid damage, the aliens, all the different shading for the alien warrior, the gunmetal for the armor, the predator. I mean, it's like an insane amount of actual work. So again, I would say that the aliens are painted very nicely, but of course, custom can be done better. Again, some of the detailing and some of the applications a little bit more crude again, but that is as it should be for a factory job. This is certainly, I think, one of the better factory paint jobs of an alien or a predator that I have seen. And comparing again to Sideshow's more recent efforts for the Jungle Hunter and the City Hunter, and of course the standards set by Stan Winston Studios over a decade ago, the paint job, it has nothing to be embarrassed about. So you can definitely again see all of the different colorations, and then moving on to the tail as well, and the body of the actual alien fighting the predator. Again, beautifully done. Just the right amount of gloss, in my opinion. Not too crazy, but enough to kind of showcase nice little details. So I'm gonna try to get over here, get in the corner there, show you the spine from a different viewpoint. And then looking back all the way there. The one area I feel could have done with some improvement in texturing is the anatomy of the cut off parts. Here it's just kind of all goo, and it's all painted with really no contrast. And so here you can sort of see again the entrails. And I get that it has to be yellow, it has to be acid and all that. But again, when you look at it, it's like, I wish there was just a little bit more contrast done. Here it just looks like they just basically painted one shade with no texturing, no variation. And so that part could have been done a bit better, in my opinion. So right here and here, again, it's just all one shade of yellow, and so I think you could have interspersed a lot more different shades of yellow and green to kind of give that a lot more, again, a lot more character, so to speak. Okay, so that is the one part where I think the paint job suffers. But again, overall, very, very solid. I'm pretty picky because again, I don't have a lot of just factory stuff. A lot of my Predator alien pieces are all custom from Joe Dunaway. And so, I'm happy with this factory paint job, actually. I don't think it's terrible, and I do think that it's not embarrassing, and it's worth the money that I paid to have that factory paint job. Okay, so again, if you go super close with flash, obviously it doesn't look as good, but if you just kind of back away, normal appreciation distance, it looks absolutely fantastic. So we're nearing the end. We're almost to an hour worth of me talking about this. I think one of the other things that you can't say enough about is the packaging. So this comes in 2 huge boxes, as you can imagine. One box with the base alone and the head of the predator, and then the other box, of course, with all of the parts, the main body of the predator, all the parts of the alien that you put together. So I have to give now this is where the producer gets a lot of credit. The producer has to come up with the concept of the statue. Franco then, of course, works with the producer, but this concept is all the producers. So he gets a lot of credit for just creating this amazing, beautiful, dynamic idea. And then another thing is that the producer has to then work with the sculptor and the factory to properly design it so you can put it together and you can ship it. And so I have to say that this thing was packed and shipped beautifully. It came in the 2 boxes with the foam, the kind of the foam now, the black foam that a lot of Chinese factories now package the statues in because it's just safer. When it came here, nothing broke, all perfect condition, no chips, nothing at all. All the pieces accounted for, clearly labeled. Each dread was individually labeled. And then there's a very nice instruction that show you exactly where each dread goes. So again, they made it very, very nice. The thought of putting 39 individual dreads usually would fill you with dread, so to speak. But as it turns out, it was surprisingly painless as long as you paid attention. So again, overall, very, very well done, well thought out. Each of these alien parts at the bottom have slots that you slot them in, and it's actually slotted in a particular order. For instance, the head, the lower body, and then the arm goes in first, and then the upper body goes in last and over the arm. If you put the upper body in first, you can't put the arm in here. This mask, of course, is free floating. You can put it anywhere you want. There's a piece of the tail that slots right in here. And then of course there's the leg right here at the join lines that slots in here. One of the nice things about this piece is they hid the join lines very cunningly, so it's impossible to see typically where the join lines are. It's done very, very well and very, very thoughtfully so that you don't see the obvious seam lines or join lines. So once you have the pieces of the alien body put in place, again, remember to put this arm in first, then you put the predator in place. There's a slot for the leg right over here, and then there's another slot on the actual head itself where this this foot goes in, and again it slides very nicely. For a piece of this complexity, especially when you start getting up there where the alien is actually trying to attach to the predator, poor quality control and shortcuts can lead to some incredibly frustrating elements where just simply the pieces are not fitting together. There's been plenty of customs, like the one that comes to mind is Magneto, where the cape just wouldn't even fit, and it was just very, very frustrating to get that to happen. This piece, by and large, engineered beautifully, magnetized in all the right places. All the dreads are magnetized, all of the major arms are magnetized, so you don't have to worry about it just kind of dropping, and they all fit nice and snug, but not too snug. Just very, very beautifully put together. Okay, so. Again, you get the body in there, and then you have the arm here, and then here is the arm of the alien. So the way you do this is there's a huge body, and then you put the actual tongue, which is a square peg, into the hole, and you line up another peg into the hole here. So that's the main body in one piece. The head here is all in one piece. So you fix the alien from here to here. And then he's still a little bit unstable, but everything else is there to stabilize it. So then you put an arm right over here at the shoulder line, that's where the seam is. And then this arm goes all the way here and it slots into a peg in here. So there's one more stability where the alien is now attached to this area and another point of fixation. So I have a point of fixation with the tongue in the shoulder, with the right foot into the slot here, and now you have the arm in the slot here and attached to the main body, and then this thing comes separate and snaps on as a magnetized piece so that you have the entire claw going around the wrist. Very ingeniously done. Okay, and then we're not done yet, because at the other end, after you put the head in place, so the recommendation is first put in the shoulder cannon right over here. So you put in the shoulder cannon in place, and then you put the head in position, and with the head actually on the body, you can then very slowly, working bottom up, and use the diagram, put all of the dreads all the way around, little by little by little. But another point of fixation is then you put the alien's left arm into position here, you magnetize it, and then the other end snaps into a peg in the crown of the head. And you can see here, this is where it is, right there. Back off, you can actually see that right there. So this is yet another point of fixation So, the alien is actually fixated to the predator ingeniously at 1, 2, 3, 4 places, okay? And then a fifth place is where this leg comes over here, and then again, it gets fixated to the shoulders, another peg here. So now that's 5 places, and then finally the tail is placed here, back here. There's a middle join right over here. I don't quite remember where it's at. Oh, here it is. So if you go right here, this is the join right over here, and then it goes from here all the way here, and then the join goes, and there at the knee is a very tiny metal peg that goes in here. So the alien is basically fixed to the predator in no less than 6 separate slots. So that alien is very, very well stabilized. The center of gravity is beautifully calculated. It's stable, not gonna fall. None of these pieces are gonna fall. Okay, so again, a beautifully thought out and engineered work to keep it together. And this is not easy to do because it's so ambitious. You're trying to have, you don't want to look like the predator is giving the alien a piggyback ride, right? Like that's the last thing you want. And that's a very dangerous possibility with this type of work. And so for you to create that sort of dynamic relationship, for you to create a situation where the two look like they're just killing each other, it's really difficult to do. And you have to make sure that it looks good, and you have to make sure it's stable, it doesn't fall apart and get damaged. And so this is like, again, genius that they were able to do that. So again, to think about, fixation point 1, fixation point 2, fixation point 3, fixation point 4, fixation point 5, fixation point 6. 6 parts, all nice and snug. Now, the tail does bear some talking because it is this really, really long tail, and because of its length, it can warp during shipping, and it might be very difficult to attach it both through the peg here and also through this little tiny nail over here. The two may not be able to, be placed. Now, every one of these pieces apparently is unique, meaning that the tail is going to look a little bit different, and the tail is going to bend a little bit differently. What does that mean for you as a collector? That means that the solution is going to be different. Number one, I think it's almost inevitable that you're going to have problems doing the fixation both at the base of the tail as well as that little tiny spike that you put, that nail that you put into the knee. So there's a couple ways of doing it. One way, and you're going to need help for this, is you put the tail here, you put the little needle here, and then the join here is not going to join up at all. It's not going to be aligned. And what you do is you take a blow dryer and you heat it so that the entire tail is really, really hot. And when the resin is hot, it becomes malleable. And then with somebody to help, you just basically slowly put it together, and then you put this, put the two edges, and you just put it together. And that does require the blow dryer. And this was done by the producer himself for his own personal piece, and he had no problems with it. And so for some of you, that may be the way you have to do it. Now, but remember, when you're doing that, there does run this risk, which is that you have to make sure that the tail is really hot, because if it's not hot enough, there's just not going to be enough give. And then you run the risk of damaging over here, where you'll literally have the metal snap the hole open, where like a piece of resin will just fit, or you may actually damage, at this point, one of the joints here, where like maybe a little piece will chip off, because again, it's just, you're forcing it, and the force will actually chip a piece off, because again, it's not malleable enough. So you have to, in order for this to work, you really have to make sure that the blow dryer is really, really a good blow dryer and heats it up real hot. You have to take your time. You have to make sure it's really, really hot, so that the tail can be bent. What I did, which is a lot less risk, is I just put the two pieces of the tail together. Then I heated it up to make it nice and warm. And then what I did was I just put it in here and in here. And because it's this one long circle, there was enough give, at least for my particular piece, to not have to join here. I just made the tail together. I put these two pieces together, and then I was able to slide the peg in here and then put the metal in here. There was enough give that it was not a big deal. So at least for me, that worked. So this is the only part of the assembly that requires a little bit of trickiness. And of course, they had to have the little tiny peg here, because without it, the length of the tail is so huge that it would just droop down and it would just basically fall down. over time. And so he didn't want to compromise on this beautiful tail here. Look at how long that is. Again, you really have a bona fide alien warrior. And so he didn't want to compromise on the length of that beautiful tail, but to do that, you created this sort of a design challenge, which you have to sort of work with. So there you have it. I mean, when you take a step back, you can just see how majestic this piece is right over here. Look at that. So, when my almost 6-year-old daughter saw me putting this thing together, she knows nothing about aliens or predators, of course, not that age. But this thing was just so overwhelming that even, to a child's eyes, they know exactly what's happening. And they just know that this is something impressive. And she was so funny because I think she got this from YouTube or whatever. She just kept saying like how this was such an epic statue, so epic. It's just so really cute. I'll see if I can try to record her saying that again, and I'll splice it to the end of this long review. But like I said, even my almost 6-year-old daughter, who knows nothing about the source material, the lore, was just so blown over by this piece. I'm going to stop talking for a second right now. I'm just going to cut it off because I do want to sort of show some shots without the flash. So moving back, you can just see how, I'm all the way back like 8-9 feet away. So I have to go over here just to give you an idea of how huge this is. And then going a little bit closer, you'll finally be able to see, again, all of that detail. So moving up and down. It's just so hard to show this from all the different angles. And moving to the side. So this is what he looks like from the side. So you can get an idea of the depth of the piece. And then shooting him from the back. And of course from the other side. So this is actually the join line here where the tail is falling. So look at it from this side, this angle. I have to go way back again. So again, kind of getting an idea of what he looks like. And then finally back to the front again. All right, so I'll see you after the break. I'm going to stop here and then I'm going to shoot it again without the flash. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So here we go now without flash. So hopefully, we're just going to kind of quickly go over some of the details. Like you can see, without the flash, it's hard to see some of the detail, but at least you get a better idea of the actual paint job. So looking again very closely at the colorations, you can see the eyes right here. They actually even put a little bit of detail around the irises, which is appreciated. Take a look here again at the tentacles. And here's the predator again. Look at the spots. I think without the flash, you get to see it in a different light, kind of the natural shadows, the gunmetal effects, the feet. And then here, of course, you can see again the details of the base. All right, look at this. See the nice weathering. And then again, sort of, I think now you have a better idea what I'm talking about. Without the glare from the flash, you can definitely just kind of appreciate the fact that it's very monochrome with all the guts here and here. Look at the alien. P1 mask. You can see the mesh right over here. And then of course, I don't know how I feel about these little tiny dots. It's a design decision. A way of painting it. There we go here. So yeah, even though the sculpt, you can see actually the claw marks here from, again, this bad boy right over here. So even though the sculpt, of course, is an alien warrior, the coloration is pretty unique. Here you have, see, the tentacles on the back. And then, of course, the jaws. Again, the tongue could be a little bit better, in terms of the sculpt and also the paint quality. It's a little bit more monochrome, doesn't quite have any contrast or texture to it. Okay. So now, sort of leaning back here, and then kind of showcasing the alien. So kind of get an idea what he looks like this. And then, of course, this is the predator. And from this distance, that B minus goes right up to like a B plus, A minus. Again, excellent work. Look at the detailing of the alien on the back. This is super tall. You can see those seam lines here to put the to attach the magnetize to attach the claw right over here so it fits. Again, look at the back. Almost like standing on tippy toes here. Look at the beautiful tail. Little peg where that goes in, the little nail where that goes in. The attachment point right here. So again, this is what he looks like from the front. And then what he looks like from the side. And the back. And then the other side here. Look at how deep the statue is. This is one of the most amazing shots right here. Just the torso with him finding the alien. All right. What can I say? What more can I say about this piece after an hour of kind of blathering about it? It's just amazing. Definitely one of the best alien predator pieces ever conceived, ever created. This is like old school sort of custom grail, old school ambition. A huge, heavy, expensive, over the top project, completely unique and ambitious in terms of its design, and very, very limited, excellent communication throughout, professional from beginning to end, well packaged, with very, very solid quality, pieces coming together, fitting well, good paint. Again, this is like the kind of like ideal standard, like is the standard of how a custom project should come together. Again, this is a custom project because there's no other way that this piece could possibly come into existence. Only 30 made, small number of people, very, very limited. Again, everything with the creation of this project from beginning to end is just like, this is the way every project should be done, and it's not that way. Truly an ideal, this is like the ideal experience, from the subject matter to the design to the rationale, all the way to the quality, the communications, everything now finally to the end stage, where the producer is making sure everybody's happy, taking care of little issues, and again, even little dumb things like, for me, losing the little tiny hoses that he's going to replace. All of these things to bring a project like this to closure. So again, aside again from just little tiny nitpicks here or there, I guess the only advice I would say is, I think probably the better way of naming it, and it could just be because of a language thing. The producer is not a native, not Native American. He's not an native English speaker. Is that the title is a little bit clumsy? The Hunter's Way. I think probably, again, with the way the English language is constructed, a better title would be what we call the Way of the Hunter. I think, again, that's just my opinion. Different people will have different opinions on this, of course, but at least I think in English, this is a perfect example or perfect opportunity to switch things around, and the better title would be the Way of the Hunter. And I think that's very natural to say it like this. And in my mind, this is the title of the piece. When I refer to it, I refer to it as the Way of the Hunter, okay, instead of the Hunter's Way. Exactly the same idea, but the Way of the Hunter is the more natural title, in my opinion. And if that's the only thing I can come up with to say about this, then I think that just shows you how amazing this is. So the Way of the Hunter, sculpted by Franco Carlissimo, only 30 in existence, minus 25 out of 30. I haven't done a long, like in-depth dive review in quite a while. So for those of you who are Predator fanatics, Predator fans, I hope that you enjoyed that, because I think this piece does deserve it. And the only YouTube video out there is, of course, not English language. So this is the English language version as far as I know. I do look forward to a few more reviews out there. I think Mr. X is getting one of these in, and his reviews are always very nice, always top-notch production quality. So looking forward to his thoughts on this. But in my opinion, definitely one of the best. I think that there's no higher praise I can give this piece than to say that I'm gonna display it next to my Cinemaquette Predator, which by the way I haven't even reviewed because I'm too scared to move it. It's so ridiculously heavy. But this absolutely can take its place next to the Stan Winston Studios P1 maquette and the Cinemaquette as like the holy trinity. Absolutely can take its place without any embarrassment. And I would say that the top four, at least for a lot of Pred connoisseurs or Pred fans, you gotta say the Cinemaquette, the P1 Stan Winston Studios, the Sideshow Legendary Scale Wolf, and now we have the custom Way of the Hunter. Absolutely, those four, for many people, going to be the pinnacle and not very controversial. All right, guys, thanks again for hopefully enjoying this piece with me. And until next time, do take care.